Klamath Lake Massacre 1846, Kit Carson's bloodiest battle. A single shot pierces the Oregon night. In the darkness around Klamath Lake, 14 men jolt awake to find themselves surrounded by shadows that move like spirits through the trees. 3 of their companions already lie dead, their blood soaking into the wilderness soil. This is not just another frontier skirmish. This is the beginning of a massacre that will reshape the American West. Welcome to Native Legends and History Stories, where we uncover the raw, untold stories of America's frontier. If you're fascinated by the clash of cultures, the price of expansion, and the men who shaped our nation's destiny, subscribe now and join us on this journey through history. The night of May 9, 1846, starts deceptively peaceful at Klamath Lake, Oregon. After traversing 60 grueling miles of treacherous mountain terrain, 14 seasoned mountain men finally allow themselves to rest. Their muscles ache from the day's journey. Their clothes still damp from crossing ice-cold streams and fighting through dense underbrush. The camp they've made is strategic, positioned between the towering pines and the lake shore, offering both shelter and escape routes if needed. These aren't ordinary frontiersmen. Among them are 3 Delaware warriors, their faces weathered by decades of tracking and hunting across territories that span from their ancestral eastern woodlands to these unfamiliar western mountains. Their unmatched skills in navigation and survival have saved countless expeditions from disaster. Their keen eyes have already noted every possible approach to the camp, every shadow that could hide a threat. Beside them lies Basil L.A. Jens, a French-born frontiersman whose life story reads like a novel of adventure. Born in the bustling fur trading hub of St. Louis, he learned the ways of the wilderness from both Native American hunters and French-Canadian voyageurs. His knowledge of the territory's hidden trails and dangerous passages has made him invaluable to countless expeditions. Tonight, however, even his experienced instincts failed to sense the danger approaching. Leading this remarkable band is John C. Fremont, a man whose ambitions stretch as far as the territories he explores. His rise to prominence is a testament to both his natural abilities and his political acumen. As a former U.S. Army cartographer, his skill with maps and measurements is unquestionable, but it's his marriage into a powerful political family that has transformed him from a simple military man into a key player in America's westward expansion. His father-in-law's connections in Congress have secured him a prestigious appointment, officially to map the American West, unofficially to prepare these lands for American control. The territory they traverse is technically Mexican soil, though Mexico's claim to it is as thin as the mountain air. From the fertile San Joaquin Valley to the snow-capped peaks of the Cascade Mountains, the true power lies with the native tribes, who have called these lands home for countless generations. The Mexican government, its authority diminished by distance and disinterest, maintains only a symbolic presence through a scattered string of missions clinging to the Pacific coast like seashells on a beach. This vacuum of power has created an irresistible opportunity for American expansion. Just as Texas a decade earlier had drawn ambitious settlers with promises of cheap land and minimal oversight, Northern California's vast, ungoverned spaces have become a magnet for a new wave of American pioneers. Farmers seeking fertile soil, ranchers dreaming of endless grazing lands, and entrepreneurs hoping to build their fortunes far from eastern constraints. All are drawn to this sparsely populated region, where the total number of settlers barely reaches a few thousand. In Washington, D.C., President James K. Polk and his predecessor, John Tyler, have recognized this opportunity. Driven by the increasingly popular doctrine of manifest destiny, the belief that American expansion across the continent is both inevitable and divinely ordained, they have set their sights on these territories. But before they can claim this land, they need to understand it. That's where Fremont's expeditions come in. His careful mapping of the Rocky Mountains and Sierra Nevada ranges detailed reports of desert crossings, and coastal approaches are more than mere exploration. They're the groundwork for American conquest. Yet tonight, as Fremont's exhausted men surrender to sleep after their grueling 60-mile journey through Oregon's rugged terrain, they're unaware that they're about to become entangled in a violent conflict that will leave an indelible mark on this contested land. On the shores of Klamath Lake, Fremont's expedition encountered an unexpected visitor. U.S. Marine Lieutenant Archibald Gillespie emerged from the dense redwood forest, his uniform worn and muddy from weeks of relentless travel. The Marine officer had embarked on an extraordinary journey that began in Washington, D.C., where President James K. Polk personally entrusted him with confidential messages of national importance. Gillespie's path to Fremont had taken him first through Mexico City's crowded streets, where he carefully maintained his cover as a civilian merchant. From there, he boarded a merchant vessel bound for California, enduring weeks at sea before reaching Los Angeles. Upon arrival, he learned that Fremont's expedition had already moved hundreds of miles northward. Without hesitation, Gillespie began a grueling pursuit through California's diverse terrain, from the scorching valleys to the snow-capped Sierra Nevada mountains. His training as a Marine in the 1830s had prepared him for such challenges. He navigated through unmapped territories, crossed swollen rivers, and traversed mountain passes still deep with winter snow. He traveled light and fast, often covering 40 miles a day, knowing the urgency of his mission. The messages he carried, sealed in oilskin pouches and hidden within his clothing, contained instructions about the United States' growing interest in California, a territory that would become increasingly significant as tensions with Mexico escalated. Upon reaching Fremont's camp, Gillespie delivered both the official dispatches for the American consuls in Los Angeles and the private communications for Fremont himself. The contents of these letters remain a mystery to historians, though contemporary accounts suggest they detailed plans for California's annexation. The messages also likely contained intelligence about growing tensions between the United States and Mexico, as well as instructions for Fremont's role in the anticipated conflict. The impact of these communications transformed the expedition's atmosphere. Fremont spent hours studying the documents by lamplight, conferring with Gillespie in hushed tones. The urgent nature of their discussions led Fremont to make an unusual decision. He suspended the standard practice of posting night guards, allowing his exhausted men to rest without interruption. While most men in the company welcomed this rare opportunity for unbroken sleep, one seasoned frontiersman maintained his vigilance. Christopher Houston Carson, known throughout the territories as Kit Carson, had learned through decades of experience that comfort often preceded danger. At 37 years old, Carson had already lived several lifetimes' worth of adventures, his reputation spreading far beyond the frontier through popular dime novels published in eastern cities like New York, Philadelphia, Austin, and Washington, D.C. Carson's actual experiences surpassed even the most dramatic fictional accounts. His journey began in Kentucky, where he apprenticed to a saddlemaker at age 14. But soon fled the confines of civilization for the vast western territories. He learned the art of trapping from seasoned mountain men, mastered multiple Native American languages, and developed an encyclopedic knowledge of Western geography that few could match. His travels took him from the highest of the Rocky Mountains to the Pacific coast, from the Mexican borderlands to the Canadian frontier. Throughout the 1830s, Carson rode with legendary trappers whose names became synonymous with the American frontier. Bill Williams, whose tracking skills were considered supernatural; Jim Bridger, who discovered the Great Salt Lake; and Ewing Young, who established the profitable California-Oregon trade route. Together, they mapped unknown territories, established trading posts, and opened new routes that would later become major migration paths. Carson's personal life reflected the complex relationships between frontiersmen and Native American tribes. His first marriage in 1836 was to an Arapaho woman named Singing Grass. Their union produced 2 daughters and allowed Carson to gain intimate knowledge of Arapaho customs, language, and survival techniques. However, tragedy struck in 1839 when Singing Grass died from complications during her 3rd childbirth, leaving Carson to care for their young children alone. In the aftermath of this loss, Carson married a Cheyenne woman named Making Out Road. The marriage followed traditional Cheyenne customs, but cultural differences and the challenge of integrating his children from his previous marriage led to a swift divorce. Making out, Rhodes' family refused to accept Carson's daughters, creating an untenable situation that forced him to choose between his new marriage and his children's welfare. The most devastating blow came in April 1842, when Carson's younger daughter, whose name was never recorded in historical documents, suffered a horrific accident. While playing near the trading post where they lived, she fell into a large vat of boiling soap, being prepared for the spring cleaning. The tragedy prompted Carson to transport his surviving daughter to relatives in Missouri, where she could receive a formal education and the stability that his nomadic lifestyle couldn't provide. The chance meeting on a Missouri River steamboat marked the beginning of a complex partnership between two very different men. John C. Fremont, recognizing the frontiersman's reputation, engaged Carson in conversation and offered him a position as guide for his upcoming scientific expedition. Carson accepted and within weeks found himself leading Fremont's party westward through territories he knew intimately. Between 1842 and 1846, Carson guided Fremont onto major expeditions across the American West. These journeys covered thousands of miles of challenging terrain, from the Rocky Mountains' treacherous passes to the arid expanses of the Great Basin. Throughout these expeditions, Carson's knowledge repeatedly saved the party from disaster. His ability to read weather patterns prevented them from being trapped in mountain snowstorms. His understanding of native territories helped them navigate potentially hostile areas. His tracking skills kept them supplied with game when provisions ran low. Despite these crucial contributions, Carson remained acutely aware of the social gulf between himself and his employer. Born into poverty and unable to read or write, he viewed his role through the lens of his humble origins. Even with his vast experience and proven capabilities, Carson consistently deferred to Fremont, the wealthy, educated Army officer with powerful political connections. This deference manifested itself on the evening of May 9th, when Carson, despite his misgivings, accepted Fremont's decision to forgo posting guards at their Klamath Lake camp. Carson's instincts, honed by decades on the frontier, warned him of potential danger. His concerns stemmed from recent violent encounters with native tribes throughout Northern California, particularly the devastating Wintu Massacre just weeks earlier. The Wintu Massacre, also documented as the Sacramento River Massacre, occurred in late March 1846. Upon reaching Lassen Ranch in the northern Sacramento Valley, Fremont's party received reports from settlers about an imminent native attack. Fremont, seeing an opportunity to enhance his military reputation and demonstrate American force in the region, assembled a substantial fighting force. His command included 60 Americans, 9 Delaware Indians to California Indians, and 5 men from a nearby trading post. On April 5th, this force located a large Wintu settlement. Though the village showed no signs of preparing for warfare, its size and location were enough for Fremont to order an attack. The assault came from 3 directions, catching the inhabitants completely unprepared. Thomas Breckinridge, who witnessed the event, recorded its brutality. The order was given to ask no quarter and to give none. The settlers charged into the village, taking the warriors by surprise, and then commenced a scene of slaughter, which is unequaled in the West. The bucks, squaws, and papooses were shot down like sheep, and those men never stopped as long as they could find one alive. The massacre demonstrated Fremont's willingness to use overwhelming force against native populations, regardless of evidence of hostile intent. These events weighed heavily on Carson's mind as he lay in camp at Klamath Lake, his experienced instincts warning him of potential dangers despite his commander's confidence in their safety. The Wintu Massacre left an indelible mark on the territory. Bodies littered the settlement and river banks, with death toll estimates ranging dramatically from 150 to 700 victims. Sacramento River ran red with blood as scores of Wintu people, including women and children, attempted to escape the gunfire by swimming. Many were shot in the water, while others, weighed down by heavy winter clothing, drowned in the swift current. The surviving witnesses carried stories of the carnage throughout Northern California and Oregon, describing in detail the dark-haired, long-bearded officer who commanded the mountain men during their brutal assault. Kit Carson had witnessed countless violent encounters throughout his decades on the frontier. He had participated in tribal wars, settler conflicts, and military campaigns. Each engagement had taught him valuable lessons about the intricate patterns of tribal warfare and revenge. The scale of the Wintu Massacre surpassed typical frontier skirmishes, and Carson understood that such unprecedented bloodshed would demand an equally forceful response. The night of May 9th brought that response. After midnight, the natural rhythm of wilderness sounds filled the air around the sleeping camp at Klamath Lake. Waves lapped steadily against the rocky shore, their gentle splashing mixing with the soft crackle of dying coals in the campfire. Pine needles rustled overhead as occasional gusts of wind swept down from the mountains. The familiar sounds masked approaching footsteps, until a dull, heavy thump broke through the night's routine noise. Carson's eyes snapped open. Years of frontier life had trained him to wake instantly at unusual sounds. The campfire had burned low, casting weak flickering light across the sleeping forms of his companions. At first nothing seemed out of place in the darkness. Then Carson noticed Basil Legene lying in an unnatural position nearby. "What's the matter over there, Basil?" Carson called out, already reaching for his pistol. The firelight caught something wet and dark spreading across Leganus's head and upper body. The experienced mountain man recognized the signs. Immediately his friend had been killed by a war club, the weapon striking with enough force to split his skull while he slept Indians. Carson's warning cry echoed through the camp as he discharged his pistol into the surrounding darkness. The muzzle flash briefly illuminated shadowy figures moving between the trees. His longtime companions, Lucian Maxwell, Alex Gotti, and Dick Owens, sprang to action with practiced efficiency. They drew pistols and tomahawks, pressing their backs together to defend against attacks from all sides. Steel gleamed in the firelight as arrows whistled through the air, thudding into tree trunks and the ground around them. Crane, a Delaware tracker, known for his exceptional marksmanship, grabbed his rifle and took aim at the moving shadows. The weapon failed to fire, either unloaded in the rush to sleep or compromised by the damp night air. Undeterred, Crane swung the heavy rifle like a club as several warriors charged through the camp. His position directly in front of the campfire silhouetted him against the flames, making him an easy target. Multiple arrows struck him simultaneously, the impact lifting him off his feet before he crumpled to the ground. Carson heard a deep, pained groan from his right. Turning, he saw Danny, another Delaware tracker who had served with him through numerous expeditions, lying motionless on the blood-soaked earth. There was no time to mourn. Carson shifted his attention back to the center of camp, where the firelight revealed an extraordinary sight. A lone warrior stood his ground amidst the chaos, his presence commanding attention. War paint covered his body in intricate patterns that seemed to dance in the flickering light. A magnificent headdress adorned with eagle feathers marked his high status. Unlike the other attackers, who struck quickly and retreated into darkness, this warrior fought with direct, calculated fury. His steel tomahawk, a weapon that represented the blending of native and European technologies, flashed as he engaged multiple defenders. War cries in his native tongue echoed through